The following incident took place around 6:30 p.m. on November the 7th, 1967 in Alberta, Canada. 13-year-old David Seewaldt was coming home from a friend's house. It was late autumn, and David decided to take a shortcut across a field, a journey that should have taken him a few minutes. Suddenly David heard a high-pitched noise and saw a silver-grey object in the sky. As he studied the object, he noticed that there were coloured lights dotted around the centre that were flashing on and off. The next thing he knew, he was running up to his front door in a blind panic as if someone were chasing him, and raced up to his bedroom. His older sister Angela found him hiding under the bed in a state of shock. She asked him what's wrong and why was he so late. He said he'd been chased by a flying saucer and described what the craft looked like, but could not remember the entire incident or account for the missing time. The walk from his friend's house should have taken him about 3 minutes, and David was usually never late, but he had somehow lost 35 minutes. David normally had an easygoing nature, but the incident had left him tense and nervous. When they later asked for more details about his experience with the UFO, he found there were many details he could not recall, only that it was following him. A few months later, in April 1968, David had a nightmare and was violently struggling in his sleep. After waking up, he came to the realization what had happened in the field with the UFO 5 months previously. The nightmare had brought memories to the surface, and David now remembers being taken aboard the craft and subjected to a physical examination by strange-looking beings that were vastly different in appearance to humans. His nightmare was so realistic that David was in no doubt that it was an accurate recollection of what had happened during his missing time. His parents were so concerned about his story that they contacted UFO researcher and investigator W.K. Allen from Clownell in British Columbia. Allen hosted a UFO-related show on the local radio station CFCN AM in Calgary, and they'd known about Allen after hearing him discuss flying saucers on his show. Allen visited them on Sunday, November the 19th, and interviewed David. Unfortunately, David was unable to recall any new information, only that it had chased him as he walked across the open field. In order to get to the bottom of what happened, Allen suggested to his parents that David undergo regressive hypnosis to help unlock what had really happened to him that day in 1967. When David was first regressed, it released such terror and trauma for the teenager that it caused a mental block. When he was asked what had happened after he saw the craft, he was unable to speak, and his legs shook violently, so they had to proceed at a very slow pace in order for David to release his terror. When David regained his composure, they repeated the same question, which caused another spasm of terror. Allen had attended the hypnotic sessions and was convinced by David's reactions, and had indeed undergone some sort of traumatic experience. Not quite certain of what David was experiencing, and no doubt skeptical about his story, the hypnotist suggested that perhaps he'd been late that evening because he was up to some mischief with his friend and devised a UFO tale as a cover-up. David had a fairly placid nature, but hearing what it suggested made him angry and hostile, and was adamant that he was telling the truth. After a few more sessions, the hypnotist decided to change his approach, and found a way to circumvent David's horror of reliving the confrontation. Now under the supervision of a Dr. Masson, a psychologist at the University of Calgary, David was filmed whilst under hypnosis. They suggested to David to relive his experience as if he was looking at television, because looking at a drama on a screen cannot hurt you. As they proceeded with the experiment, Dr. Masson proceeded to ask David a series of questions while he was under deep hypnotic recall. Doctor: David, I would like you to see yourself on the 19th of November last year. You can visualize that. You can see yourself there. Will you tell me where you are? David: I'm in the empty lot. All right, look around and tell me everything that you see. I see an object in the sky above me. What colour is the object? Silver greyish. It has a coloured band of lights around the middle of it. All colours: green, yellow, blue, orange, red, pink. What happens next? They put an orange beam on me. Where does the beam come from? The ship. What part of the ship? The middle, on the bottom. How did you feel when the beam touched you? I was sort of in a trance. Earlier, David had stated on hypnosis that when he saw the beam coming down, he felt frightened. Now he was describing a second reaction after it touched him and he was being pulled up into the ship. Doctor, did the beam grab hold of your arms or did it grab hold of your body? What does the beam do to you? David, it brought me up on the ship. How did it bring you up? Like you were going up an elevator? No. Did you feel a funny sensation as you were going up? No. Were you frightened? No. I was in a trance. Did you scream? No. All right. Keep telling me what's going on. The beam is bringing me up to the ship now. I see a monster. Tell me about the monster. It has scaly skin. It has holes for its nose and holes for its ears, and it has a slit on its face for a mouth. It's brown. Well, how many monsters do you see? 2. What made you think that the skin was scaly? What was there about the skin that made you think it was scaly? It looked like a crocodile skin. It's sort of rough all over. What did their backs look like? Did they have a crocodile back too? I never saw their backs. Did they have any clothes on? No, just that sort of skin. Were they smiling? No. Were they angry? No. Were they happy? No. They didn't show any expression. Tell me everything that's happening now. They put me in a sort of cot. He's looking at my body. What about your body? He's studying it. He took all my clothes off. All right, David, now what is happening? They're bringing me through a hallway into another room. What does the other room look like? It has all sorts of bright lights in it. What else do you see? There's another table there. They put me on the table. And now, David, he's lifting my head up. He's lifting it up. His voice is extremely frightened and plaintive, as if wanting to escape from something. He looks at my hair and my eyes and my nose. Now David's breathing rises and falls with gasps and sobs as he relives that terrifying moment. How many are looking at you? 4. What are they like? They all look the same. Can you tell me something more about their faces? It's sort of scary. What about their heads? It's round. How many hands do they have? 2. Are the hands very similar to yours? No, they're like real rough. How many fingers do they have? 4. Do they have a thumb as well? No. How big are these beings? About 6 feet. What are they wearing? It looks like they're not wearing anything. They have a brown sort of scaly skin-like. How many feet do they have? 2. There's nothing on their feet. How many toes do you see on their feet? 4. What else do you notice about them that's unusual? They only have 4 fingers. They have holes for their ears and nose and a slit for their mouth. Are they saying anything to you? I can't understand. Why can't you understand? It's a strange language. He's not speaking in English? No. Imitate the sound these beings are saying. David makes a long buzzing or humming sound, much like a giant bee or some type of machinery. Dr. Masson asked him to repeat it in case they could detect a pattern which might be deciphered. Doctor, and who's saying this? David. Just one of them. He's telling the others. What is he doing while he's saying this? He's looking at my body. Have you ever been on a table like that before? Yes. Where? In an operating room. What's going on now? You're on the table. And David pauses, breathing heavily, as if not wanting to remember. The psychologist repeats the question, telling the hypnotized boy that he will be comfortable and not frightened by anything that he sees. They put this other thing over me. What other thing? What does it look like? It's a greyish colour, and they just throw it over me, and then this great big huge orange-coloured light comes down and is shown on me. Then one of them took a sort of needle. It's grey, it's small. He sticks it in my arm. Were you awake all the time when you were in this room? Yes. Did they give you anything to eat or drink? No. I was sort of in a trance. How did you feel in that trance state? I felt funny. I felt numb. And what goes on now? Then they put my clothes on again. They wheeled me out and they beamed me down. Where do you get down? In the empty lot. Just before you saw the ship, what were you doing? I'm walking. Do you hear anything? Yes, a high-pitched sound. And what do you do when you hear it? I look up and I see this grey, silvery greyish object. How big is the object? About as big as a house. And how far is it off the ground? Oh, about 30 to 40 feet. What do you notice about this object? It has coloured lights around the middle which melt together. Do you feel any wind, any vibration? Just the wind. What reaction do you have? I'm frightened. Now, I would like you to come back to the time just before you see this ship and before you hear the high-pitched sound. What are you doing? How are you feeling? What are you thinking? I was coming from my friend's house. I felt great. I wasn't thinking about anything. Now, right after the beam has pulled you up and everything, we're right back and the object had disappeared. Now what's going on? I start to run home. And how do you feel as you run home? Frightened. Is there any other feeling that you have? I'm scared, frightened. I feel numb all over. Is there any part of your body that feels different from in any other part of your body? Yes, my head, like it was twirling around. And how do your legs feel? Numb. I'm going to wake you now. You're back at the present. After you wake up, you'll be wide awake. You'll be alert. You'll be confident. You'll feel fine. All the hypnotic aggression sessions with David Seewaldt were videotaped, but efforts by people to obtain copies of transcripts of the experiment have been denied.